You know what? I'm going to be completely honest with you right from the start. Everything you've been told about discipline is probably wrong. And I don't mean slightly off. I mean fundamentally, completely, totally wrong. Most of us grew up believing that disciplined people are just tougher than the rest of us. That they wake up excited to do hard things. That they have some secret superpower we're missing. We look at the friend who never misses a morning run, the colleague who always hits their deadlines, the neighbor who seems to have their entire life together, and we think they're just built different. But here's what nobody tells you. That's complete nonsense. Those people you admire, they're not tougher than you. They don't have better genetics. They're not more motivated. And they definitely don't wake up every single day pumped to tackle challenges. They're just like you, except they've figured out something crucial that most people never discover. Let me share something personal. For years, I struggled with consistency. I'd start strong, join a gym, commit to a project, promise myself I'd change. The first week, amazing. I felt invincible. The second week, still pretty good. But by week 3, I'd be making excuses. By week 4, I'd quit entirely. Then I'd beat myself up, convinced I just wasn't a disciplined person. Sound familiar? Here's the breakthrough that changed everything for me. I was fighting the wrong battle. I was trying to force myself to be someone I wasn't, instead of understanding how I actually work. I was relying on motivation when I should have been building something much more powerful. Think about it this way. Imagine trying to drive a car by pushing it from behind instead of using the engine. That's what most of us do with discipline. We're exhausting ourselves trying to force behaviors through sheer mental effort, when we could be building systems that run automatically. Understanding your two minds. Here's something fascinating about how we work as humans. Your brain basically operates like two different people living in the same house. There's the thoughtful, logical you, the one making plans and setting goals. Let's call this your planning mind. Then there's the automatic, habit-driven you, the one who actually executes most of your daily behaviors. This is your doing mind. Most of us spend all our energy trying to control everything with our planning mind. We wake up and immediately start making decisions. Should I exercise? What should I eat? Should I work on that project? Should I check my phone? By lunchtime, we're mentally exhausted from all these tiny decisions, and we default to whatever's easiest. But here's what I've learned. Your planning mind gets tired. It has limits. It's like a battery that drains throughout the day. Every decision, every moment of resisting temptation, every choice depletes it a little more. This is why you can be super productive in the morning, but find yourself scrolling social media at night, even though you know you should be doing something else. Your doing mind, though, it never gets tired. It just runs whatever programs you've installed. The problem is, most of us have installed the wrong programs without even realizing it. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wake up and have an internal debate about whether you'll brush your teeth today. You don't need motivation for it. You just do it automatically. That's your doing mind in action, running a program that's been installed so deeply you don't even think about it. Now imagine if your important goals ran on the same system. What if exercising felt as automatic as brushing your teeth? What if working on your dreams felt as natural as making your morning coffee? The motivation trap we all fall into. Let's talk about motivation for a second, because I think this is where most of us get completely stuck. We treat motivation like it's supposed to be this endless fuel source. We watch inspirational videos, read quotes, psych ourselves up. And it works for about 3 days. Then life happens. You have a rough day at work, your kid gets sick, you sleep poorly, your friend cancels plans. Suddenly, that motivation is gone, and you feel like a failure because you can't summon the energy to keep going. But here's what I want you to understand. Motivation was never meant to be your engine. Motivation is like the spark that starts the car, not the fuel that keeps it running. The real fuel is something entirely different. It's the systems you build, the environment you create, the identity you develop. I learned this the hard way. I used to rely completely on motivation. I'd wait until I felt inspired to work out, excited to work on projects, pumped to eat healthy. Some days I'd have it, most days I wouldn't. My progress was completely random, totally dependent on my emotional state. Then I realized something. The most successful people I knew weren't more motivated than me. They just didn't rely on motivation at all. They had structures in place that worked whether they felt like it or not. Why everything you've tried hasn't worked. If you're reading this, chances are you've tried to build discipline before, maybe multiple times. Maybe you've succeeded for a while, then fallen off. Maybe you're wondering why it's so hard for you when it seems easy for others. Let me tell you why most approaches to discipline fail. And it's not because you're weak or lazy or lacking somehow. The first reason is simple. You're trying to fight yourself. Most discipline advice treats you like you're the enemy. It's all about conquering your desires, overcoming your nature, forcing yourself to do things you hate. That's not just ineffective, it's exhausting and unsustainable. Imagine if I told you the secret to a great marriage is fighting with your partner every single day. Sounds ridiculous, right? Yet that's exactly how most people approach discipline, as a daily battle against themselves. That battle never ends, and eventually you lose because you wear yourself out. The second reason is you're focused on outcomes instead of systems. You want to lose weight, so you focus on the scale. You want to write a book, so you focus on word count. You want to build a business, so you focus on revenue. But focusing on outcomes is like trying to control the weather. You can't directly make it happen. You can only create conditions that make it more likely. The third reason, and this is huge, is that you're trying to change your behavior without changing your identity. You're trying to act like a disciplined person while still seeing yourself as undisciplined. And your brain will always move toward consistency with how you see yourself. If deep down you believe you're someone who quits, who lacks follow-through, who can't stick with things, then every disciplined action will feel like pretending. And you can't pretend forever. Eventually, you'll revert to being yourself. The shift that changes everything. So what's the answer? How do we actually build discipline that lasts? It starts with a fundamental shift in how you think about the whole thing. Instead of trying to force yourself to be disciplined, you're going to become the kind of person who naturally acts with discipline. Instead of battling against yourself, you're going to work with yourself. Instead of relying on finite willpower, you're going to build infinite systems. This might sound subtle, but it's everything. It's the difference between pushing a boulder uphill every single day versus setting up a system where the boulder rolls downhill on its own. Let me give you a real example. I used to try to force myself to write every day through sheer willpower. I'd sit down, stare at a blank page, wrestle with my resistance, and maybe squeeze out a few hundred words before giving up exhausted. It was torture. Then I changed my approach entirely. Instead of trying to write through willpower, I built a system. I set up a specific writing spot that had 0 distractions. I created a pre-writing routine. Make tea, put on specific music, review yesterday's work. I started with a commitment to just 10 minutes, which felt ridiculously easy. I tracked my streaks, which made me want to keep them going. The result? Writing stopped being a fight. It became something I just did, like brushing my teeth. Some days the words flowed, some days they didn't. But I showed up either way because the system made it natural. That's what we're going to build together. Not more ways to force yourself, but systems that make discipline feel natural. Your brain isn't broken. It's just running old programs. Here's something that might make you feel better. If you struggle with discipline, it's not because there's something wrong with you. Your brain is actually working exactly as designed. The problem is, it's designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Think about our ancestors thousands of years ago. Their survival depended on conserving energy, seeking immediate rewards, and avoiding unnecessary discomfort. The person who said, "I'll eat this food now rather than save it for later," was more likely to survive than the person who practiced delayed gratification. The person who avoided unnecessary physical exertion lived longer than the person who went for morning runs just for fun. Your brain still runs those ancient programs. It's wired to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. That's not a bug. It's a feature. It kept your ancestors alive. But in the modern world, those same instincts work against you. The foods that taste best are terrible for you. The activities that feel easiest don't build your future. The choices that provide immediate pleasure often create long-term problems. So, we're not going to fight against your brain's wiring. That's a losing battle. Instead, we're going to work with it. We're going to use your brain's natural tendencies to support your goals instead of sabotaging them. Your brain loves patterns and predictability. We'll use that. Your brain responds to environmental cues automatically. We'll leverage that. Your brain moves toward consistency with your identity. We'll harness that. By the time we're done, your brain won't be fighting your discipline. It'll be the engine driving it. The truth about starting small, I need to address something that stops a lot of people before they even begin. When I talk about building systems and starting small, some people think I'm talking about setting low standards or not being ambitious enough. That couldn't be further from the truth. Starting small isn't about limiting yourself. It's about understanding how change actually works in the human brain. When you try to make massive changes overnight, you trigger your brain's threat response. It sees the change as dangerous and it fights you with everything it has. That's why New Year's resolutions fail so spectacularly. Too much change, too fast, without proper foundation. But when you start small, so small it almost feels silly, you bypass that threat response. Your brain doesn't resist because the change doesn't feel threatening. You build evidence that you can follow through. You create momentum. You establish patterns. Then, once those small patterns are solid, you build on them. The person who commits to 10 push-ups every morning will eventually find themselves naturally doing 20, then 50. The person who writes one sentence daily will eventually write paragraphs, then pages. It's not about staying small. It's about starting small to build big. I think about it like building a house. You don't start with the roof. You start with the foundation. And the foundation might not look impressive while you're building it, but it's what allows everything else to rise high and stay standing. What's really possible? When you get this right, before we go deeper into exactly how to build these systems, I want you to understand what's actually possible when you approach discipline the right way. I'm not going to promise you'll become perfect. I'm not going to tell you every day will be easy. I'm not going to claim you'll never struggle again. But here's what is absolutely, genuinely possible. You can reach a point where disciplined action feels more natural than undisciplined action, where following through feels easier than quitting, where consistency is your default, not the exception. You can build systems that work even when you're tired, stressed, busy, or unmotivated. Systems that actually get stronger under pressure instead of breaking down. You can develop an identity where discipline isn't something you do. It's who you are. Where the question isn't, should I do this, but simply, when and how. You can create a life where your days run smoothly because you've automated the important stuff, freeing up your mental energy for creativity, relationships, and joy. I've seen this transformation happen in my own life, and I've watched it happen for countless others. Not because we became superhuman, but because we stopped fighting ourselves and started working with ourselves. The path forward. Here's what we're going to do together. We're going to build your personal discipline operating system, a comprehensive approach that makes discipline your natural state rather than something you have to force. We'll start by understanding exactly how your environment shapes your behavior and how to design environments that make good choices automatic and bad choices difficult. We'll talk about identity, how to shift from trying to act disciplined to actually being disciplined at your core. This is where real, permanent change happens. We'll explore how to build habits that stick, how to recover when you inevitably have setbacks, and how to create momentum that compounds over time. We'll address the mental game, how to handle the doubts, the resistance, the voice that tells you to quit, how to keep going when things get hard. And we'll talk about energy, because discipline without energy management is like trying to run a marathon without training. You need to understand how to maintain your capacity to be disciplined over the long haul. But here's the most important thing I want you to understand right now. This isn't about becoming someone you're not. This is about becoming more of who you already are. Discipline isn't foreign to you. You're already disciplined in some areas of your life, even if you don't recognize it. You show up to work consistently, right? You maintain relationships. You've learned complex skills. You've overcome challenges before. That's all discipline, even if it doesn't look like the stereotypical image of a disciplined life. We're just going to take that capacity you already have and expand it intentionally to the areas that matter most to you. A quick reality check. Before we continue, I need to be real with you about something. This approach works, but it's not magic. It requires genuine commitment and consistent action. Not perfect action, just consistent action. You're going to have days where you don't feel like it. You're going to face obstacles. You're going to question whether it's worth it. That's all normal and expected. The difference is you'll have tools to handle those moments instead of letting them derail you completely. You'll understand that setbacks are part of the process, not evidence that you're failing. I also want to acknowledge that everyone's starting point is different. If you're dealing with serious mental health challenges, chronic illness, or overwhelming life circumstances, building discipline might look different for you than it does for someone with fewer obstacles. That's okay. The principles we're discussing are adaptable. Start where you are, not where you think you should be. Why this time is different. Maybe you've tried to build discipline before and it didn't stick. Maybe you're skeptical that this time will be any different. I get it. But here's why this approach is fundamentally different from what you've probably tried before. We're not relying on motivation or willpower. We're building systems that work regardless of how you feel. We're not trying to change everything at once. We're starting with foundations and building systematically. We're not fighting against your nature. We're working with how you actually function as a human being. We're not focused on outcomes you can't control. We're focused on processes you can control that lead to those outcomes. Most importantly, we're not treating discipline as a destination. We're treating it as a skill that you develop progressively over time. You don't expect to play piano beautifully after one lesson. Why would you expect to master discipline immediately? Your starting point as we move forward, I want you to do something important. Let go of who you think you should be and accept where you actually are right now. Don't compare yourself to the most disciplined version of yourself you can imagine. Don't measure yourself against other people who are further along. Don't beat yourself up for past failures or current struggles. Your only job is to be slightly more disciplined tomorrow than you are today. That's it. Just 1 degree better. One small improvement. One tiny step forward. Because here's the beautiful truth about discipline. It compounds. Those tiny improvements add up. That 1 degree of change, maintained consistently, creates transformations that seem impossible from where you're standing right now. A ship that adjusts its course by just 1 degree will end up in a completely different destination over a long journey. You're adjusting your course right now. The destination might not look different tomorrow or next week, but give it time. Trust the process. The changes are happening, even when you can't see them yet. Moving forward together. As we go deeper into building your discipline operating system, remember this. I'm not here to tell you that you're broken and need fixing. You're not broken. You're just running on outdated programming, using ineffective strategies, and fighting battles you don't need to fight. We're going to update that programming together. We're going to give you strategies that actually work. We're going to help you stop fighting yourself and start supporting yourself. Discipline isn't about becoming cold, rigid, or robotic. It's about becoming free. Free from the chaos of inconsistency. Free from the disappointment of not following through. Free from being controlled by your impulses and moods. Real discipline creates space for spontaneity, creativity, and joy, because you're not constantly stressed about things left undone. It creates confidence because you know you can count on yourself. It creates opportunities because consistent action over time opens doors that random bursts of effort never could. So take a breath. You're in the right place. You're ready for this. And most importantly, you're capable of this. Not because I'm saying so, but because it's true. The capacity for discipline isn't something some people have and others don't. It's something everyone can develop with the right approach. Let me tell you about the single biggest mistake I made when I first tried to build discipline. I thought it was all about me, my choices, my willpower, my strength. I'd wake up determined to make good decisions, then spend the entire day fighting temptation, resisting distractions, and battling my own impulses. By evening, I was exhausted and usually gave in to whatever I'd been trying to avoid. What I didn't understand then, but know absolutely now, is that your environment is making most of your decisions for you. Not obviously, not consciously, but constantly and powerfully. Think about it. When you walk into your kitchen and see cookies on the counter, your brain immediately starts thinking about eating them. You didn't decide to think about cookies. They decided for you just by being visible. When your phone buzzes with a notification, you don't consciously choose to feel that little spike of curiosity. It happens automatically. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for cues about what to do next, and it's making thousands of micro decisions based on what it sees, hears, and experiences around you. This happens whether you're aware of it or not. So here's the game-changing insight. Instead of trying to be strong enough to resist your environment, you need to design an environment that doesn't require resistance in the first place. The environment you can't see. When most people think about environment, they think about their physical space. And yes, that's crucial. But your environment is actually much bigger than that. You have 3 environments constantly shaping your behavior: your physical environment, your digital environment, and your social environment. Let's start with the physical, since it's the most obvious and the easiest to change. Your physical environment includes everything around you: your home, your workspace, your car, even the route you take to work. Every object in these spaces is either nudging you toward your goals or away from them. There's no neutral. I learned this lesson dramatically when I was trying to eat healthier. I'd come home from work, walk through my kitchen to my bedroom, and on the way, I'd grab a snack from the pantry. Not because I was particularly hungry, just because it was there, visible, easy. I'd tell myself I lacked discipline around food, that I just needed more willpower. Then I tried something different. I moved all the snacks to a high shelf in the garage, not because I was banning them entirely, but because I wanted to create friction. Suddenly, if I wanted a snack, I had to walk to the garage, climb on a step stool, and deliberately choose to get it. Most of the time I couldn't be bothered, The behavior wasn't about willpower at all. It was about convenience. At the same time, I put a bowl of fruit on the counter where the snacks used to be. Guess what happened? I started eating more fruit, not because I suddenly loved apples more, but because they were now the convenient choice. Same person, same level of willpower, completely different behavior, all because of environmental design. Making good choices, frictionless. Here's a principle that will transform how you think about discipline. Every additional step required to do something reduces the likelihood you'll do it by a significant percentage. Every step you remove increases the likelihood exponentially. This means if you want to build a habit, your job is to make it as ridiculously easy as possible to do the right thing. Remove every possible barrier, every source of friction, every excuse your brain might use to avoid it. Let me give you some examples from my own life and the lives of people I've worked with. Want to work out in the morning? Don't just set an alarm. Lay out your workout clothes the night before, right next to your bed where you'll see them first thing. Put your shoes by the door. Have your water bottle ready. Maybe even sleep in your workout clothes if that helps. Make it so easy that getting dressed for the gym takes zero thought and zero decisions. Want to read more? Don't rely on remembering to pick up a book. Put books everywhere, on your nightstand, in your bathroom, by your couch, in your bag. Make books the most accessible form of entertainment you have. At the same time, make less useful activities harder. Maybe put your TV remote in a drawer instead of on the coffee table. Maybe delete social media apps from your phone so you have to actively choose to reinstall them rather than mindlessly opening them. Want to eat healthier? Prep your meals on Sunday so healthy food is already ready to eat, while junk food requires preparation. Keep cut vegetables at eye level in your fridge. Make water the most accessible drink in your house. You see the pattern? You're not becoming a different person with superhuman willpower. You're engineering your environment so that the right choices become the path of least resistance. The power of removal. But here's something even more powerful than making good choices easy, making bad choices impossible. Most people try to build discipline through addition, adding good habits, adding structure, adding rules. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is subtract. Remove temptations, eliminate triggers, delete options entirely. I had a friend who wanted to stop wasting time on news websites. He tried blocking them during work hours, but he'd just look on his phone. He tried setting time limits, but he'd override them. What finally worked? He had his partner change all his passwords to sites he wanted to avoid and not tell him what they were. Extreme? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. You might think that's too drastic, but consider this. Every moment you spend resisting temptation is a moment of mental energy spent. Every time you rely on willpower, you're depleting a limited resource. Why not just remove the need for that resistance entirely? If you're trying to stop drinking soda, don't keep it in your house. Don't rely on willpower to avoid drinking it. Eliminate the option. If you're trying to focus on deep work, don't just silence your phone. Put it in another room entirely. If you're trying to stop buying things you don't need, delete shopping apps from your phone. Unsubscribe from promotional emails. Avoid stores that tempt you. This might feel like admitting weakness, but it's actually the opposite. It's acknowledging how human psychology actually works and being smart enough to work with it instead of against it. Your digital environment is running your life. Now, let's talk about something that's probably having a bigger impact on your discipline than almost anything else. Your digital environment. Your phone, your computer, your tablet. These devices are with you constantly, feeding your brain a steady stream of information, notifications, and stimulation. And here's the thing. They're designed by some of the smartest people in the world to be as addictive as possible. You're not lacking discipline when you struggle to put your phone down. You're fighting against billions of dollars of behavioral psychology research aimed at capturing your attention. So, what do? First, audit what's on your devices, every app. Every bookmark, every notification setting, all of it is shaping your behavior. Ask yourself, is this helping me become who I want to be, or is it working against that? Be ruthlessly honest. That news app that you check 30 times a day, is it actually adding value to your life, or is it just feeding anxiety? That social media platform you scroll through for hours, is it connecting you meaningfully with people, or is it making you feel worse about yourself? For me, the breakthrough came when I deleted Instagram from my phone, not because Instagram is bad, but because I noticed that every time I had a free moment, waiting in line, sitting on the couch, even at red lights, I'd instinctively open the app. It was filling all the gaps in my day that used to be for thinking, reflecting, or just being present. Without it on my phone, those gaps remained gaps. Sometimes I'd feel bored, which was uncomfortable at first, but I realized boredom isn't actually a problem. It's often when my best ideas emerge. Those in-between moments became space for creativity instead of consumption. You might not need to delete the same apps I did. Your digital environment is personal, but I guarantee there are apps on your phone right now that are working against your discipline, and you're probably so used to them, you don't even notice. Creating digital boundaries that actually work beyond removing distracting apps. You need to set up your digital environment to support focus and intentionality instead of reactive behavior. Here are some strategies that have worked for me and others. Turn off all non-essential notifications, and I mean all of them. You don't need to know immediately when someone likes your post or when a sale is happening. These interruptions fragment your attention and make deep work nearly impossible. Check these things on your schedule, not when your phone demands it. Use apps that block distracting websites during work hours. Yes, you can override them, but that extra step of having to actively choose to break your own rule creates just enough friction to make you pause and reconsider. Create separate user profiles or devices for work and leisure if possible. When you're in work mode, you only have access to work tools. When you're in leisure mode, you can access entertainment. This creates clear boundaries and reduces decision fatigue. Set up your phone's home screen with only tools, not entertainment. Every time you unlock your phone, you should see apps that help you accomplish things, not apps that suck you into scrolling. Put the fun apps a few swipes away where you have to consciously choose to access them. Use grayscale mode on your phone. This sounds strange, but colors are specifically designed to be attention-grabbing. When you remove color from your phone, it becomes dramatically less appealing, making it easier to use it as a tool and put it down when you're done. The social environment nobody talks about. Now, we need to address the hardest environment to change, your social environment. The people around you have a more profound impact on your behavior than almost anything else, and yet we rarely talk about this when discussing discipline. You've probably heard that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's a cliché because it's true, but it goes deeper than you might think. Your brain is constantly calibrating what's normal based on what the people around you do. When everyone around you operates a certain way, that behavior becomes your unconscious baseline. If your friends are all trying to improve themselves, it feels normal to work on goals. If your friends are all complaining about their circumstances, it feels normal to complain. If your family expects you to show up late, you'll probably show up late. If your colleagues work through lunch, you'll probably do the same. This isn't about judgment. It's about understanding how social influence actually works. You're not weak for being influenced by others. You're human. We're wired to fit in with our social groups because for most of human history, being excluded from the group meant death. So, what do you do when the people around you don't support your discipline goals? First, understand that you don't necessarily need to cut people out of your life, but you do need to be more intentional about who you spend time with and when. If you have friends who always want to go out drinking when you're trying to get healthier, maybe you see them less frequently or suggest different activities. If you have family members who criticize your goals, maybe you share less about what you're working on with them. At the same time, actively seek out people who embody the qualities you're trying to develop. Join communities around your goals. Fitness groups if you're working on health. Writing groups if you're working on creativity. Entrepreneur meetups if you're building a business. You're not looking for perfection in these people. You're looking for shared values around growth and improvement. When you're surrounded by people who are trying to get better, trying becomes normal. When everyone around you is working on something, working feels natural. The environment audit you need to do. Here's what I want you to do. Take some time this week to really look at all 3 of your environments, physical, digital, and social, and ask yourself honest questions. What in my physical space is making bad choices easy and good choices hard? What could I remove, move, or add to flip that? What in my digital environment is fragmenting my attention and pulling me away from my goals? What could I delete, block, or reorganize? Who in my social circle supports my growth and who undermines it? How can I spend more time with supporters and less time with those who pull me down? This audit might be uncomfortable. You might realize that your current setup is actively working against you. That's okay. That's actually good because now you know what to change. And here's the beautiful thing. These changes don't require willpower to maintain once they're set up. You make the decision once to redesign your environment, and then that environment supports you automatically every day going forward. The 24-hour environment challenge. If you want to see the power of environment immediately, try this. For the next 24 hours, pretend you're setting up space for someone you deeply care about who wants to achieve your goals. Maybe it's your best friend, your child, your partner, someone you want to succeed. How would you design their space? What would you put in easy reach? What would you remove entirely? How would you organize their digital tools? Who would you encourage them to spend time with? Now do all of that for yourself, because you deserve the same care and support you'd give someone you love. Create a space that supports the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. Make your environment a partner in your discipline instead of an obstacle to it. There's this moment I'll never forget. I was at the gym, or rather, I was in the parking lot of the gym, sitting in my car, trying to convince myself to go inside. I'd driven there, which already felt like an accomplishment, but I just couldn't make myself walk through those doors. I sat there for 20 minutes, having this intense internal debate. Part of me knew I'd feel great after working out. Another part was listing every reason why I could skip today. I was tired. I had work to do. I could go tomorrow instead. The weather was bad. My favorite machine was probably taken. Finally, I drove home without ever going inside, and I felt terrible about it, not because I missed the workout, but because I'd proven to myself once again that I was the kind of person who doesn't follow through. That's when something clicked for me. The problem wasn't the workout. The problem was my identity. Deep down, I saw myself as someone who tries to be disciplined, but ultimately fails. And your brain will move heaven and earth to prove your identity right, even when that identity is hurting you. The identity problem nobody addresses. Here's what most discipline advice gets wrong. It focuses on changing your behavior without changing who you think you are. And that's why it doesn't stick. You can force yourself to act differently through sheer willpower, but if your actions conflict with your identity, you'll eventually snap back to who you believe you are. It's like stretching a rubber band. You can pull it far from its center, but the moment you let go, it snaps right back. Think about it. If you identify as someone who's not a morning person, you might manage to wake up early for a week through alarm clocks and coffee, but you'll constantly feel like you're fighting against who you are. Eventually, you'll give yourself permission to sleep in because, well, you're not a morning person. If you identify as someone who's not good with money, you might stick to a budget for a month, but then you'll make an impulsive purchase and tell yourself, see, I'm just not good with money. If you identify as someone who's creative but not disciplined, you'll make excuses for inconsistency, because discipline conflicts with your identity as a creative person. Your identity is the lens through which you see every choice. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are. And whether that story is accurate or not, you'll behave in ways that confirm it. How identity actually forms. The good news is that identity isn't fixed. You're not born with a predetermined identity that you're stuck with forever. Your identity is actually just a collection of beliefs about yourself that have been reinforced over time through your experiences and the stories you tell about those experiences. Every time you do something, you're casting a vote for the type of person you are. Do something once, and it's just an action. Do it repeatedly, and it becomes evidence of identity. If you exercise once, you're someone who exercised that day. If you exercise every day for a month, you start to become someone who exercises. If you exercise consistently for a year, you are an athlete. The behavior comes first. The identity follows. But here's the powerful part. Once that identity forms, it works in reverse. Once you truly see yourself as an athlete, exercising stops feeling like work and starts feeling like expression of who you are. Missing a workout doesn't just mean you didn't exercise. It means you weren't yourself that day. This is why identity-based discipline is so much more powerful than behavior-based discipline. You're not trying to do something difficult. You're simply being who you are, starting with tiny identity votes. When I finally understood this, I stopped trying to overhaul my entire life at once. Instead, I started asking a different question. What's the smallest thing I could do today that would be evidence I'm becoming the person I want to be? For me, wanting to become someone who's physically fit, that meant putting on workout clothes every morning. That's it. Not working out for an hour, not running 5 miles, just putting on the clothes. Why? Because every time I put on those clothes, I was proving to myself that I'm someone who shows up for fitness. Most days, once I had the clothes on, I'd end up working out because I was already halfway there. But even on days I didn't work out, I'd maintain the identity through that small action. For someone wanting to become a writer, the smallest vote might be opening their document every day. For someone wanting to become organized, it might be making their bed each morning. For someone wanting to become financially responsible, it might be checking their bank balance daily. These actions seem almost too simple to matter, but they're actually the most powerful tools for identity change because they're sustainable. You can do them even on your worst days, which means you never break the pattern of proving to yourself who you are. The stories you tell yourself, your identity, isn't just about what you do. It's also about the story you tell about what you do. Two people can have the exact same experience and form completely different identities based on the story they tell about it. Person A tries to wake up early, fails a few times, and tells themselves, "See, I'm not a morning person. I've tried before, and it never works." This story reinforces an identity of someone who can't change. Person B has the same experience but tells themselves, "I'm learning to become a morning person. It's challenging, but I'm making progress." This story reinforces an identity of someone who grows through challenges. Same facts, different stories, completely different identities. I spent years telling myself I was undisciplined. I had plenty of evidence. All the times I'd quit, all the projects I'd abandoned, all the promises I'd broken to myself. That story felt like truth because I had proof. But then I started questioning the story. Was I really undisciplined, or had I just been using ineffective strategies? Was I actually someone who always quits? Or was I someone who hadn't yet learned how to build sustainable systems? When I changed the story from "I am undisciplined" to "I am developing discipline," everything shifted. The same setbacks that used to prove I was hopeless now became evidence that I was learning. Choosing your future identity. Here's what I want you to do right now. Think about who you want to become, not what you want to achieve, who you want to be. Do you want to be someone who's healthy and energetic? Someone who's creative and productive? Someone who's financially secure? Someone who's a great parent? Someone who's constantly learning gets specific about this. Not, I want to be successful, but I am someone who consistently creates value for others. Not, I want to be fit, but I am someone who respects and cares for their body. Write this identity down. Say it out loud. Let yourself feel what it would be like to actually be this person right now, not someday in the future. Now, here's the key. Start acting like that person today, in the smallest possible ways. You don't need to wait until you've achieved your goals to claim this identity. You claim the identity first, and the achievements follow. If you want to be someone who's healthy, ask yourself throughout the day, what would a healthy person do right now? A healthy person would drink water instead of soda. A healthy person would take the stairs. A healthy person would go to bed at a reasonable time. Do those things, and you're not trying to be healthy. You are healthy. If you want to be someone who's productive, ask, what would a productive person do right now? A productive person would start working immediately instead of checking email first. A productive person would break this big project into smaller tasks. A productive person would eliminate this distraction. Do those things, and you're not trying to be productive. You are productive. The identity conflict that keeps you stuck. Sometimes people resist this because they have conflicting identities they're attached to. You might want to be disciplined, but you also identify as someone who's spontaneous and goes with the flow. You think discipline means giving up spontaneity, so you resist it. You might want to be successful, but you also identify as someone who's humble and down to earth. You worry that success will make you arrogant or separate you from your friends. You might want to be organized, but you also identify as creative and artistic. You believe organization will kill your creativity. These conflicts are real, but they're based on false dichotomies. You can be disciplined and spontaneous. In fact, discipline creates the freedom for true spontaneity because you're not constantly stressed about things left undone. You can be successful and humble. You can be organized and creative. The key is redefining what these identities mean to you. Discipline doesn't mean rigid. It means reliable. Success doesn't mean arrogant. It means impactful. Organization doesn't mean boring. It means prepared. When you resolve these conflicts, you stop fighting yourself and start moving forward cleanly. Living from your identity. Once you've claimed your new identity and started gathering evidence for it through small daily actions, something remarkable happens. Decisions become easier because you're not weighing options. You're just being yourself. You don't have an internal debate about whether to work out. You just do it because that's what someone who values their health does. You don't agonize over whether to start that project. You just start because that's what productive people do. This doesn't mean you'll never face resistance or doubt. But instead of that resistance being about who you are, it's just a temporary feeling that passes while you continue being who you are. I still have days where I don't feel like writing, but I write anyway, not through willpower, but because I am a writer. Writers write, even when they don't feel like it. It's not a battle. It's just what is. The social proof of your identity, one more powerful aspect of identity work. Share your new identity with people who will support it, When you tell someone, "I'm training for a marathon," you're not just sharing information. You're publicly claiming an identity as a runner. When you introduce yourself as someone who's building a business, you're claiming that identity socially. This creates accountability, yes, but more importantly, it makes the identity feel more real. When other people see you as the person you're becoming, it reinforces your own belief in that identity. But be selective about who you share with. Share with people who will support your growth and believe in your capacity to change. Don't share with people who will doubt you or remind you of past failures. The power of identity. Maintenance. As your new identity becomes more established, you'll find yourself naturally maintaining it. Your brain doesn't like inconsistency. It's deeply uncomfortable when your actions don't match your identity. This is why people who identify as non-smokers find it easy not to smoke, while people who identify as smokers trying to quit struggle constantly. It's why people who see themselves as morning people wake up early naturally, while people who see themselves as night owls fight their alarms. Once your identity shifts, discipline stops being about effort and becomes about consistency, staying true to who you are. And here's the beautiful part. As you prove this identity to yourself through consistent action, it becomes more and more solid. Eventually, acting against it feels wrong, unnatural, like you're betraying yourself. That's when you know the transformation is complete. You're no longer forcing discipline. You're simply being disciplined, because that's who you are. Let me tell you about the day everything changed for me. I was standing in my kitchen at 6:47 a.m., exhausted, staring at the coffee maker. I'd been up late working, slept terribly, and had a packed day ahead. Every fiber of my being wanted to skip my morning routine and just collapse on the couch with my phone. But here's what happened instead. I made my coffee, sat down at my desk, opened my journal, and started writing my morning pages. Not because I felt motivated, not because I white-knuckled my way through resistance, but because my system kicked in automatically. The coffee maker was already set up from the night before. My journal was open on my desk where I'd left it. My phone was in another room. I followed the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance had been designed to lead me exactly where I needed to go. That's when I realized I'd finally built a system that worked without me having to be perfect. Why habits fail and how to build ones that don't. Most people approach habits completely wrong. They focus on the behavior itself, the workout, the writing, the meditation, without understanding the invisible architecture that makes that behavior stick or slip. A habit isn't just an action you repeat. It's a three-part loop. There's a trigger that starts it, the routine itself, and then some kind of reward that makes your brain want to repeat the whole thing. Miss any of these three pieces, and the habit falls apart. Let me break this down with a real example. Say you want to build a reading habit. Most people think about the routine. I'll read for 30 minutes. But that's only one piece. What's going to trigger that reading? When and where will it happen? And what's the reward that makes your brain crave it tomorrow? Without a clear trigger, you're relying on remembering to read, and your memory will fail you constantly. Without a reward, reading feels like work, and you'll find excuses to skip it. Here's how to build it right. The trigger might be sitting down with your morning coffee. Every time you pour coffee, that's your cue to grab your book. The routine is reading while you drink that coffee, maybe just 10 or 15 minutes at first. The reward is the enjoyment of the book itself, plus the satisfaction of starting your day with learning rather than scrolling. Now you've got a complete loop. The coffee triggers the reading. The reading is enjoyable enough to become its own reward. Your brain starts to expect this pattern and actually crave it. The power of chaining behaviors. But here's where it gets really powerful. Once you've built one solid habit, you can attach new habits to it. I call this behavior chaining, and it's one of the most effective strategies I've ever used. Instead of building isolated habits that each need their own willpower and triggers, you create sequences where each behavior naturally leads to the next. My morning sequence looks like this. I wake up, immediately make my bed. 30 seconds. Go to the kitchen and start coffee. 2 minutes. While coffee brews, I do a 2-minute stretching routine, pour the coffee, sit at my desk with the coffee, write morning pages for 10 minutes, then review my 3 priorities for the day. Notice how each action leads naturally to the next. I'm not making separate decisions about whether to do each thing. I'm just following a path that I've laid out, one behavior triggering the next, like dominoes falling in sequence. This sequence took time to build. I didn't start with all of it at once. I began with just making my bed, did that for 2 weeks until it was automatic, then added the coffee routine, then the stretching, and so on. Each piece was simple enough that I could do it even on hard days, and the sequence made everything easier. Making systems inevitable instead of optional. Here's a truth that took me years to understand. You don't need more discipline. You need better systems. Systems that make the right choice so obvious and easy that it would actually be harder to make the wrong choice. Think about brushing your teeth. You do it automatically, right? Not because you have incredible discipline around dental hygiene, but because the system is perfect. Your toothbrush is right there by the sink. The action takes 2 minutes. It's part of a sequence. You use the bathroom, wash your face, brush your teeth. You've done it thousands of times. The pattern is carved into your brain. Now imagine if your toothbrush was in a drawer in another room, and you had to hunt for toothpaste each time, and there was no clear time you were supposed to do it. Would you brush your teeth as consistently? Probably not. That's what most of your desired habits look like right now. Scattered, unclear, requiring decision-making. Your job is to make them as systematic as brushing your teeth. For me, with exercise, the system looks like this. My workout clothes are laid out the night before. My gym bag is by the door. I work out at all the same time every day. I use the same playlist to start. I follow the same warm-up routine. I track my workouts in the same app. Is every workout perfect? No. Some days I'm tired, distracted, or struggling, but the system doesn't care how I feel. It just runs. And that's the point. The system works even when I don't want it to. The decision elimination protocol, one of the biggest breakthroughs in my discipline journey, was realizing how much energy I was wasting on decisions that didn't matter. What should I wear? What should I eat for breakfast? When should I start working? Which task should I do first? Every one of these tiny decisions was draining my mental battery before the day even really started. So I eliminated them. I created what I call decision elimination protocols, predetermined answers to recurring decisions so I never have to think about them again. For clothes, I basically wear the same outfit every day. Not literally the same items, but the same style and colors. My closet has multiples of the same shirts, same pants, same shoes. Getting dressed takes 30 seconds and zero thought. For food, I eat the same breakfast every day during the week. Same lunch options on rotation. I know exactly what I'm eating and when, which also makes grocery shopping automatic. For work, my day has a structure that doesn't change. Deep work from 9 to 12, meetings and communication from 1 to 3, administrative tasks and planning from 3 to 5. I don't decide what to do when. The structure decides for me. This might sound rigid or boring, but it's actually liberating. I'm not spending energy on these routine decisions, which means I have more energy for the decisions that actually matter: creative work, strategic thinking, meaningful conversations. Building failure-proof systems. Now, let's be honest. No system is perfect, and you're going to have days where things fall apart. Life happens. You get sick. You travel. You have an emergency. You just have an absolutely terrible day. This is where most people's discipline collapses completely. They miss one day, feel guilty, miss another day because they're already off track. And within a week, they've abandoned everything. The key to sustainable discipline is building systems that account for failure and make recovery automatic. I do this through what I call minimum viable actions. For every habit I want to maintain, I have two versions: the full version and the emergency version. Full version workout, 60 minutes at the gym with weights and cardio. Emergency version, 10 push-ups and a 2-minute plank at home. Full version writing, 2 hours of focused creative work. Emergency version, write a single paragraph. Full version meditation, 20-minute sitting. Emergency version, 3 conscious breaths. The emergency version is so small that I can do it even on my absolute worst days. And here's what's beautiful about this. Doing the emergency version maintains the pattern. It keeps the habit alive. It proves to myself that no matter what's happening, I'm still the kind of person who shows up. Often, once I do the emergency version, I end up doing more because I'm already in motion. But even if I don't, I've maintained the streak, which is more valuable than most people realize. The power of streaks and momentum. Speaking of streaks, this is something most people underestimate. A streak isn't just a number on a calendar, it's psychological momentum that becomes increasingly powerful over time. When you've meditated for 300 days in a row, breaking that streak on day 301 feels almost painful. Your brain has invested in that streak. It's become part of your identity. Missing a day isn't just skipping meditation, it's breaking a promise to yourself. This is why I track my key habits visually. I have a simple spreadsheet where I mark an X for each day I complete each habit. The chain of X's becomes something I want to protect and extend. Some people use apps for this. Some use physical calendars. The tool doesn't matter. What matters is making your progress visible so you can see the streak building. But here's an important note. Don't track too many things. If you try to track 15 habits, You'll get overwhelmed and track nothing. Pick your 3 to 5 most important habits and track those religiously. Let other behaviors happen naturally around those core habits. When to upgrade your systems. As you build these systems and they become more automatic, you'll reach a point where they no longer challenge you. This is actually a good sign. It means the habit is fully integrated. But it also means it's time to level up. For me with exercise, I started with a simple routine I could do at home. Once that became easy and automatic, I upgraded to going to a gym. Once that became routine, I added more challenging exercises. Once those became manageable, I hired a trainer to push me further. Each upgrade came only after the previous level was solid and automatic. I never tried to jump to the advanced version before building the foundation. This is key. Progression should feel challenging, but not overwhelming. If you're struggling to maintain a habit, you've progressed too fast and need to scale back. If a habit feels completely effortless, it's time to increase the difficulty slightly. Systems for different life areas. Everything I've talked about applies to any area of life where you want to build discipline. Let me give you a few specific examples. For health, set up a meal prep system on Sundays. Create a workout schedule that doesn't change. Build a sleep routine that starts the same time every night. Put your gym clothes somewhere you'll trip over them in the morning. For work productivity, block the same hours for deep work every day. Create templates for recurring tasks. Build a shutdown routine that clearly marks the end of your workday. Use website blockers during focus time. For relationships, schedule regular date nights or friend time rather than hoping it happens spontaneously. Create conversation rituals with your partner. Maybe you always talk over morning coffee or evening walks. Set up systems for remembering important dates and checking in with people. For learning, block the same time for reading every day. Set up a note-taking system you actually use. Create a regular practice schedule for any skill you're developing. Join a class or a group that meets consistently. For finances, automate your savings so money moves to savings before you can spend it. Set up automatic bill payments. Create a weekly money check-in ritual. Use apps that make tracking spending effortless. The pattern is always the same. Make the desired behavior automatic, predictable, and easier than the alternative. The beautiful thing about systems. Here's what I love most about building these systems. They compound. Each system you build makes the next one easier. The discipline you develop in one area spills over into other areas. When you prove to yourself that you can stick to a morning routine, you gain confidence that you can stick to an exercise routine. When you master that, you gain confidence in building work systems. Each success builds on the previous one. Eventually, you reach a point where building systems and following through becomes your default mode of operation. It's not something you have to force anymore. It's just how you operate. And that's when discipline stops feeling like discipline and starts feeling like freedom. You're free from the chaos of inconsistency, free from wondering if you'll follow through, free from the constant internal debate about what you should be doing. Your systems run in the background, taking care of the important stuff automatically, while you get to focus on growth, creativity, and actually living your life. I want to tell you about a moment that made me rethink everything I thought I knew about discipline. I was having coffee with a friend I hadn't seen in years. She looked at my life, the consistent routines, the productive habits, the structured days, and said something that stopped me cold. Doesn't all that discipline make life boring? Don't you ever just want to do whatever you feel like? I realized she saw discipline as a cage, as restriction, as giving up freedom and fun in exchange for productivity and achievement. And honestly, I used to see it that way too. But here's what I told her, and what I want you to really hear. Discipline isn't the opposite of freedom. Discipline is what creates freedom. When you're disciplined with your health, you're free from the anxiety of wondering if you're taking care of yourself. When you're disciplined with your work, you're free from the guilt of procrastination and the stress of last-minute deadlines. When you're disciplined with your time, you're free to actually enjoy your leisure instead of feeling like you should be doing something else. Undisciplined people think they're free, but they're actually prisoners. Prisoners to their impulses, their moods, their circumstances. They're controlled by whatever feels good in the moment, and then they deal with the consequences later. Disciplined people make intentional choices up front, and then they get to enjoy the results of those choices. That's real freedom. The energy problem nobody talks about. But here's something crucial that most discipline advice completely misses. You can't force yourself to be disciplined if you're completely depleted. Discipline requires energy, and if you're running on empty, no amount of systems or willpower will help. I learned this the hard way. I built these great systems, established solid routines, and then wondered why I kept burning out. I'd be consistent for a few months, then crash completely and spend weeks recovering. The problem was I was treating my energy like it was infinite. I was scheduling discipline without scheduling recovery. I was pushing hard without refilling the tank. Your energy isn't just physical. It's mental, emotional, and even spiritual. And each type needs different kinds of recovery. Physical energy comes from sleep, nutrition, and movement. You can't outsmart this. You can't hack your way around needing 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. You can't maintain discipline while eating garbage and never moving your body. Your physical foundation has to be solid, or everything else collapses. Mental energy comes from focused work followed by real rest. Not half work while scrolling your phone, actual focused effort, then actual rest. When your brain is scattered across 15 different tasks and constantly interrupted, it never fully engages with anything, and it never fully rests from anything. You end up exhausted without actually accomplishing much. Emotional energy comes from meaningful connections, processing your feelings instead of suppressing them, and doing things that genuinely fulfill you rather than just checking boxes. If you're disciplined about all the productive stuff but never make time for relationships, creativity, or joy, you'll eventually run dry. Spiritual energy, and I'm using this broadly, not religiously, comes from feeling connected to something larger than yourself, from having purpose beyond just personal achievement, from contributing to others and making a meaningful impact. When any of these energy systems is consistently depleted, your discipline will suffer. You can't force your way through energy depletion. You have to address it. building recovery into your systems. So how do you maintain discipline while also maintaining your energy? You treat recovery as seriously as you treat your productive habits. For me, this means scheduling downtime the same way I schedule work time. Sunday is my complete rest day. No work, no obligations, just whatever feels good. I protect that boundary as fiercely as I protect my work time because I know that without it, my work time won't be effective anyway. It means building many recovery moments into my daily routine. After every 90-minute work block, I take a real break, walk around, step outside, move my body, give my brain actual rest, not scrolling social media, which isn't rest, actual disconnection. It means being honest about my capacity and not overloading my schedule just because I theoretically could fit more in. Yes, I could wake up at 5 a.m. and work until 10 p.m. and be technically productive, but I'd be miserable and I'd burn out within weeks. Instead, I work intensely during my best hours and protect my evening for winding down. It means paying attention to the signals that I'm getting depleted, irritability, difficulty concentrating, feeling emotionally flat, getting sick more often, and responding by reducing my commitments temporarily rather than pushing through. The relationship between discipline and joy. Here's something people get wrong about discipline. They think it's about denial and sacrifice, about giving up what you enjoy to do what you should do. But real discipline is actually about being intentional with your joy. It's about choosing meaningful satisfaction over empty pleasure. It's about short-term discomfort for long-term fulfillment. When I choose to work out instead of sleeping in, I'm not denying myself pleasure. I'm choosing the deep satisfaction of honoring my body and building strength over the shallow pleasure of extra sleep. Both feel good, but one creates lasting value while the other just delays the day. When I choose to work on my creative projects instead of scrolling social media, I'm not sacrificing fun. I'm choosing the fulfilling engagement of creating something meaningful over the empty stimulation of consuming other people's content. This distinction is everything. Discipline shouldn't make you miserable. If it does, you're doing it wrong. You're either trying to pursue goals that aren't actually yours, or you're using methods that work against your nature, or you're not building in enough real recovery and joy. The most sustainable discipline feels good. Maybe not in the instant moment of doing the hard thing, but in the hours and days that follow. You feel proud of yourself. You feel aligned with your values. You feel like you're building something worthwhile. Dealing with setbacks without losing everything. Let's be real for a minute. No matter how good your systems are, no matter how solid your habits, you're going to have setbacks. You're going to have days, maybe even weeks, where everything falls apart. You'll get sick. You'll have a family emergency. You'll go through a breakup or lose a job or deal with a crisis. Life happens, and it doesn't care about your perfect streak. The difference between people who maintain discipline long-term and people who give up is not that disciplined people never have setbacks. It's that they know how to recover from setbacks quickly instead of letting them spiral into complete abandonment of all their habits. Here's what I've learned about recovery. The first step is dropping the guilt. When you beat yourself up for missing a day or breaking a streak, you create emotional resistance to getting back on track. You start associating your habits with shame and failure, which makes them harder to return to. Instead, treat setbacks as completely normal and expected. Of course, you're going to have off days. You're human. The goal isn't perfection, it's overall trajectory. The second step is getting back on track immediately, even in the smallest way. Don't wait for Monday or next month or when things calm down. The day after you miss, you do your minimum viable action, the tiniest possible version of your habit that still counts. Missed your workout? Do 5 push-ups? Broke your diet? Drink a glass of water and eat 1 healthy meal. Skipped your writing? Write a single sentence. The specific action doesn't matter as much as proving to yourself that you can get back on track. The third step is analyzing what caused the setback without making it mean something about you as a person. Maybe your system has a weak point that needs fixing. Maybe you took on too much and need to scale back. Maybe you need better emergency protocols for difficult situations. But it doesn't mean you're undisciplined or incapable. It means you're learning what works and what doesn't. When discipline becomes who you are, there's this transformation that happens over time if you stick with it long enough. Discipline stops being something you do and becomes something you are. You stop having internal debates about whether you'll do the thing. You just do it because that's what you do. It's like asking if you'll brush your teeth. The question doesn't even make sense because, of course you will. This happens gradually through thousands of tiny moments of following through. Each time you honor a commitment to yourself, you're building evidence that you're a person who follows through. Each time you maintain a habit despite not feeling like it, you're proving that you're not controlled by your feelings. Eventually, that evidence becomes overwhelming. Your identity shifts from someone trying to be disciplined to someone who is disciplined. And when that happens, everything gets easier because you're no longer fighting against who you think you are. I know I've reached this point with certain habits when breaking them would feel weird, wrong, like I'm not being myself. Missing my morning routine doesn't just mean I didn't do my routine, it means I wasn't me that morning. That's the ultimate goal, making discipline so integrated into your identity that it's just how you operate. Not something you have to force or think about, but something you do naturally because it's who you are. Creating a life that works. At the end of the day, discipline isn't really about productivity or achievement or impressing anyone. It's about creating a life that actually works, where you're not constantly stressed about things left undone, where you have energy for what matters, where you're building something meaningful over time. It's about knowing that when you commit to something, you'll actually follow through. About being someone you can count on. About having the capacity to turn your ideas into reality instead of just thinking about them. It's about the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can do hard things. The peace that comes from your external life matching your internal values. The freedom that comes from not being controlled by your impulses. This doesn't happen overnight. Building this kind of discipline is a years-long journey, not a weekend project. But every single day you choose discipline over impulse, you're moving forward on that journey. You're becoming more of who you want to be. the invitation. So here's what I want to leave you with. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to overhaul your entire life tomorrow. You don't need to have superhuman willpower or become someone completely different. You just need to start. Start with one small habit. Start with designing one part of your environment. Start with claiming one new identity about yourself. Do that one thing consistently, even imperfectly, until it becomes automatic. Then build on it. Then build on it again. Trust the process, even when you can't see progress yet. Trust that tiny improvements, maintained consistently, create transformations that seem impossible from where you're standing right now. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be honest about where you are while being committed to where you're going. And remember, discipline isn't about forcing yourself to be someone you're not. It's about becoming more fully who you actually are. Someone capable, someone reliable, someone building a life they're proud of. You've got this, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Not because you're perfect, but because you're committed. Not because you won't struggle, but because you'll keep going anyway. The disciplined life you want is waiting for you. It's built one small choice at a time, one day at a time, one commitment at a time. And it starts right now, with whatever choice you make next. You know what the difference is between where you are right now and where you want to be? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not circumstances. It's not even time. It's the decision you make in the next 60 seconds. Because here's the truth. Everything I've shared with you, the environment design, the identity work, the systems building, the energy management, the recovery protocols, all of it means absolutely nothing if you don't actually do something with it. You can understand every word. You can agree with every principle. You can nod along and think, yes, this makes so much sense. But if you close this and go right back to the exact same patterns you've been running, nothing changes. Understanding doesn't equal transformation. Knowledge doesn't equal discipline. Action does. The two paths from here. Right now, you're standing at a fork in the road. You've probably been here before. That moment after consuming something that inspired you, that made you think, I could really change this time. One path is familiar. It's the path where you feel motivated for a few hours, maybe even a few days. You think about making changes. You might even start planning what you'll do differently. But then life happens. You get busy. The motivation fades. And within a week or two, you're right back where you started. Maybe feeling a little worse because now you have one more failed attempt to add to your history. The other path is different. It's the path where you take immediate action, not perfect action, not massive action, just immediate action. You choose one single thing from everything you've learned, and you implement it today, right now, before you do anything else. This path is less comfortable because it requires you to move beyond consuming information and actually apply it. But it's also the only path that leads somewhere different than where you've been. Which path are you going to take? The smallest possible next step. Here's what I want you to do. And I mean right now, not later, not tomorrow, not when you have time. Pick one thing, just one, not 10 things, not a complete life overhaul. one single element from what we've covered that resonated with you. Maybe it's redesigning one part of your environment, moving your phone charger out of your bedroom, putting workout clothes by your bed, clearing your desk of distractions. Maybe it's claiming one identity shift, deciding right now that you are someone who values their health, or someone who follows through, or someone who's building something meaningful. Maybe it's establishing one tiny habit, doing 10 push-ups every morning, writing one sentence daily, reading one page before bed. Maybe it's scheduling one recovery block, protecting Sunday as complete rest, building in breaks after focused work, committing to actual sleep. Whatever it is, pick it now. Say it out loud. Write it down. Make it concrete and specific, not vague and someday-ish. Got it. Good. Now here's the crucial part. Do it today. Not the perfect version, not the complete version, just the first tiny iteration of it today, before you go to sleep tonight. If you chose to move your phone charger, move it right now. If you chose to claim a new identity, say it out loud right now. I am someone who. If you chose a habit, do the first rep right now. Yes, right now, even if it's just one push-up or one sentence or one page. Why this moment matters more than you think. You might be thinking, it's just one small thing, it won't make a real difference. But you'd be wrong. That one small thing is everything. It's the difference between being someone who learns about discipline and someone who practices discipline. It's the line between consuming information and creating transformation. More importantly, it's proof. Proof to yourself that you're not just going to think about changing this time, you're actually going to do it. And that proof matters more than you can imagine because your brain is watching. Your brain is trying to figure out if this is another false start or if something is genuinely different this time. Every action you take or don't take is evidence your brain uses to predict your future behavior. If you close this and go back to scrolling or whatever you were doing before, your brain files this away as just more information we consumed but won't act on. That makes it harder to take action next time because your brain expects you to not follow through. But if you take action immediately, even tiny action, your brain registers, oh, this is different. We're actually doing something with this. That makes the next action easier, and the next one, and the next one. You're not just building a habit. You're building evidence of a new identity. You're proving to yourself that you're someone who follows through. The compound effect starts today. Think about where you'll be a year from now if you start implementing these principles today. Imagine having systems that run automatically, supporting your goals whether you feel motivated or not. Imagine having an environment designed so perfectly that good choices are easy and bad choices are hard. Imagine having an identity so solid that disciplined behavior just feels like being yourself. Imagine the confidence of knowing you can commit to something and actually follow through. The peace of having your external life match your internal values. The freedom of not being controlled by your moods and impulses. Imagine looking back at today as the day everything shifted, not because you had a perfect day, but because you took the first small step that led to all the steps that followed. That version of you, disciplined, consistent, reliable, building something meaningful, is absolutely achievable. Not someday, not in theory, actually achievable, starting with what you do in the next hour, but only if you start. The hard truth about waiting. I need to be honest with you about something. If you're waiting for the perfect time to start building discipline, you'll be waiting forever. There is no perfect time. There's no moment when you'll suddenly have more willpower, fewer obligations, better circumstances, or clearer motivation. Life will always be complicated. You'll always have legitimate reasons to wait. There will always be something going on that makes now feel like a bad time to start. But here's what happens while you wait. Time passes anyway. A year from now, you'll either be someone who started building discipline today despite imperfect circumstances, or you'll be someone who's still waiting for the right time, still stuck in the same patterns, possibly even further behind. The only perfect time is now. Not because now is perfect, it's probably messy and chaotic and far from ideal, but because now is the only time you actually have. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow isn't guaranteed, you can't take action in the past or the future, you can only act right now. Your future self is watching. There's a version of you that exists 1 year from now. That future you is looking back at this moment, at the decision you're about to make. In one timeline, future you is grateful. So deeply grateful that you decided to start today instead of putting it off one more time. They're grateful for every small choice you made, every system you built, every time you showed up, even when you didn't feel like it. They're living a life that actually works because you decided to start building it today. In another timeline, future you is regretful, wishing they had started sooner, wondering what might have been different if they'd just taken action instead of just learning about it. Still stuck in the same cycles, still planning to start soon. Which future you do you want to become? You get to choose right now, with the very next action you take. The invitation won last time, so here's my final invitation to you. Be brave enough to start badly. Be humble enough to start small. Be committed enough to start now. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to see the entire path. You don't need to know if you can sustain this for years. You just need to take the next smallest step. Do one thing today that proves you're becoming who you want to be. One thing that's evidence of your new identity. One thing that future you will thank you for. And then tomorrow, do one thing again. And the next day, and the day after that. Not perfectly, not dramatically, just consistently, imperfectly, persistently. Because that's how discipline is built. Not through massive transformations, but through tiny decisions, compounded over time, until you wake up one day and realize you've become someone completely different. Someone who doesn't force discipline. Someone who lives it. Someone who is it. That person is waiting for you. They're built one choice at a time, starting with the choice you make right now. What's it going to be? What's it going to be? Because let me tell you something that nobody else will say to you. You already know what you need to do. Deep down, you know exactly what's been holding you back. You know which habits you need to build, which environments you need to change, which identity you need to claim. The question was never, what should I do? The question has always been, will I actually do it? And I can't answer that for you. Nobody can. This is the moment where all the information in the world becomes completely useless unless you pair it with action. The uncomfortable truth about transformation. Here's what makes this moment so critical. Transformation doesn't happen gradually over time through osmosis. It happens in specific moments of decision. Moments exactly like this one, where you choose between the comfort of familiar patterns and the discomfort of change. Most people choose comfort. They choose it unconsciously, automatically, the same way they've chosen it hundreds of times before. They finish learning something valuable, and then they just continue on with their day. They'll think about it occasionally. They'll reference it in conversations. They might even recommend it to others. But they won't actually change anything. Is that going to be you? Or are you going to be different? The permission you've been waiting for. Maybe you're waiting for permission. Permission to start before you're ready. Permission to begin imperfectly. Permission to try even though you've failed before. Consider this your permission. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to transform overnight. You just need to be willing to take one small step right now. You have permission to start messy, to start scared, to start uncertain, to start even though you've started and stopped a dozen times before. This time can be different. Not because the information is different, but because you're finally ready to actually apply it. What happens? After this moment, in a few minutes, you'll move on with your day. The question is, what will you carry with you from this? Will it be just another piece of content you consumed? Another thing that made you feel inspired for a moment, but didn't actually change anything? Another, I should really do that, that joins the pile of all the other things you should really do? Or will this be the turning point you look back on months from now and think, that's when everything shifted? The difference between these two outcomes isn't how you feel right now. Feelings fade. Motivation evaporates. Inspiration wears off. The difference is what you do in the next 60 minutes. Whether you take that one small action we talked about, or whether you just keep scrolling, keep consuming, keep planning to start soon. Your move. So this is it. This is where I stop talking and you start doing. Close this. Put down your phone or step away from your computer and do one thing, one single thing that moves you toward the disciplined life you want. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not when you finish this entire to-do list or when things calm down or when you feel more ready. Right now, today, this hour. Do 10 push-ups. Move that phone charger. Write one sentence. Delete that app. Say your new identity out loud. Schedule that workout. Prep that meal. Clear that space. Whatever it is, do it now. Let this be the moment when you stopped just learning about discipline and started living it. Because discipline isn't something you think about or understand or plan for. Discipline is something you do. So go do it.